Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome back to the Showing Up to Your Life podcast and YouTube channel. My name is still Art Burns, and I am still very excited to be here with you. Or once again, I'm very excited to be here with you. I don't know which one you want to say because it does, in a sense, feel like the excitement never ends. However, as I said before, sometimes I'm just like anyone else, right? I have my rhythms. I have my days that I feel very inspired. I have days that I feel not so inspired. I have days where I sleep really well the night before. I have days where I didn't get that much sleep the night before. Maybe I didn't eat the most optimal, energetically optimal diet the day before. All these kind of things. These are all things that impact the energy and the enthusiasm that we have for things, or I should say the energy and the excitement for things that we do. The enthusiasm is something we can, kind of, that's on us, right? That's an active thing, right? To have enthusiasm for something is an active process, right? That's something that you can control, right? And enthusiasm often leads into excitement, even on those days where you're feeling not 100%. Right. And so that's kind of something we talked about yesterday as well. And I just wanted to kind of recap that because it's really important, right? That so many times, we feel like, we think of the work that the thing takes, right? Or we think about the effort that has to go into the thing or how hard something might be, right? And then what that does is that prevents us from being enthusiastic about it, right? And when we don't have the enthusiasm, then it's very hard to find that energy, right? And so that's when it becomes very easy to say, not today, not for me, thanks anyway, but no, right? And these are the ways in which we can, these are the ways in which our, sort of automatic and unconscious patterns perpetuate themselves, right? And they show up as things like procrastination, half-finished projects, a messy house or something like that, right? That's the manifestation of this thing that we're talking about, right? It's not the messy house or the dirty dishes in the sink that don't seem to wash themselves, right? Those are not the core of the problem. The core of the problem is that that lack of enthusiasm that you have for it, right? And so, and again, we oftentimes we confuse that enthusiasm for the energy that the thing takes. Okay, now I just wrote notes. I'm going to do a full episode on this. I think on Tuesday of next week. Okay, so rest assured. Okay, I've got you covered. But today I want to talk about something different. Okay, now if you're struggling with this whole energy and enthusiasm thing, if this is something that rings true with you, then hit me up. Okay, I'll put my link in the comments, the way to schedule a free call with me. This is the kind of thing that we could talk about, right? And even in just one 45-minute call, I can help you to get past some of these blocks, because that's what they are. They're blocks that are just made here, right? Just like so many of the other things that we talk about here, right? We have to get our mind out of the way so that we can do these things, which are all very, very simple. And once the mind is out of the way, these things are actually pretty easy too. And so, but again, it's the mind that makes us feel that they're not easy, and the mind is what gets in our way of doing it. So if you're struggling with a block like that, call me today or book a call today to talk this week, so we can get you started on that at least. Okay. And then we'll see where it goes from there. But if you're not in that much of a hurry, then on Tuesday, I will definitely be doing an episode about this. I think it's on Tuesday. Let me make sure while I have you here on the phone here. Yes, Tuesday. My note is, while this practice can seem like work, we can make it play. And that's the idea. So if you're interested in that, hit me up as soon as you can. If not, I'll be covering that on Tuesday in a full post. But today, I want to kind of follow up on what we've been talking about the last couple of days, right? I've given you a couple of, on Monday, I shared a personal story of a really rough morning, that included so many different, things that could have any one of the things that I talked about on Monday, rather, that happened on Friday, could have absolutely hijacked the day, right? The way that they used to it for me, right? It could have been like any one of those things happening could have, created a day, that was very pessimistic, that was very, maybe even depressed and anxious and all kinds of things that would have, taken that day and made something of it that was not my intention. Right. And so an intention is something we're going to get into in the next couple of days, which is really important. But the idea, though, that what I shared with you on Monday is how just, bringing compassion into the fold, right? Compassion for myself and compassion for this, phone support person that I was talking to, this woman, Ophelia, who I was talking to, and her colleague who was less than helpful the moment before, it's bringing compassion for all of these things into this, which helped me to break through, right? Because compassion on its own brings you into the present moment, right? When we wish for the well-being of another person or ourselves, right? It's not something we're thinking about as a future dated kind of thing, right? We don't post-date our compassion, we write those checks payable right now, and that's, and that's what compassion is, right? It's a very present activity. It's a very present, action really is what it is. It's an action. It's something that we are actively cultivating, as an attitude of compassion. And that happens right here in this moment. So just by, so compassion kind of fixes two things, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Right. And, so I hope you enjoyed yesterday's also when we were talking about anger in general, right? And how this all ties into compassion and why this makes a natural segue into today's topic about compassion that I have prepared for you. I'm really excited. I mean, not really prepared, just it's in here, but I'm really excited to share this with you, right? Because so many times when we're struggling with anger, right? Anger is that big, scary emotion that really just it's very closely tied to the stress response in our body. And it's one of those things where it can, at the same time, it can be the result of the stress in your body, but it can also be the cause of the stress in your body. And that's the thing with something like anger. It's so, it gets so sticky and so entangling. And so, but most of the time, right? Whether you're angry because of, if stress is causing the anger or if anger is causing the stress, most of the time when we're dealing with anger, it has to do with other people on some form, on some level, right? Or ourselves, right? We're angry that something didn't happen the way we wanted it to happen, right? Or the way we felt it needed to happen, right? And we get angry. And when we get angry, right, we're looking for some, object of that anger. We're looking for someone to just take it from us, right? To just like feel it, right? And so that, again, that deals with other people, right? So very, very often with the emotion of anger, or as I said yesterday, it's really a meta emotion. It's not even technically an emotion. It's really a secondary emotion or an evolved emotion, right? An emotion of an emotion, right? That when we're in that place, right, it's almost always involves at least one other person, if not us, right? Sorry, I got derailed there for a second, but the idea then is that when we can employ compassion, right, and let me just finish the thought. When we can employ compassion, we can mitigate the anger. Right? Because what happens is when, first of all, you cannot feel both at the same time. Right? That's something that's very, very important to understand on a very basic physiological level, right? You cannot have, in your mind or in your body, you cannot have an anger feeling and at the same time have an intention of kindness to someone. Right? It just doesn't work. You can't be both of those things at the same time, right? So in a very real sense, by practicing compassion, what we're doing is practicing not being angry, right? And if we're practicing not being angry, well, guess what? We get good at not being angry, right? And the way that we do that is by getting good at practicing compassion, or get good at feeling compassion, right? Because eventually, compassion is a really, really beautiful and amazing thing that happens, right? It goes from this sort of cultivated attitude that we have, right, towards other people. Like we just, convince ourselves like, no, I'm not going to be angry at that person who just cut me off on the road. I'm not going to be angry at the kid behind the counter at Starbucks who screwed up my latte. I'm not going to be angry. I'm going to feel compassion instead, right? Doesn't mean that you don't get your latte replaced. It doesn't mean that you don't, you're careful around other drivers, of course, all that kind of stuff. And it also doesn't mean that if you feel like somebody was driving erratically and you have your phone with you, you can call the police on that person, right? These things are not mutually exclusive, right? The idea of compassion is not ever to have a kind of a position or a posture in which the rest of the world walks all over you. That is not ever the concept of compassion. Compassion is, again, we can still have justice and have compassion at the same time, right? So it changes how we kind of, what we do with that justice, right? Like if it would negate any kind of retributive justice that we have, right? Like if you cut me off, I'm going to cut you off. That goes out the window, right? or like throwing a latte in somebody's face, right? Obviously we don't do that, or maybe it's not so obvious because I used to do that kind of stuff. I absolutely would knock over a coffee intentionally just to make that person clean it because that person made me angry. I'm not proud to tell you that, okay? I mean, I'm shuddering to even think of those times when that kind of stuff happened. But that's what anger will do to us, right? Anger, there's a reason they call it a blind rage, right? Because you're literally out of control when you're in that heat of anger, right? And so that's what changes with compassion, right? It becomes, and actually you're still, and I'm going to take a pause, time out here. Okay, time out, everybody. Let me just say again that it is never, ever, ever about denying your anger. It is never about, thwarting your anger, stuffing your anger, avoiding your anger, eliminating your anger. Those things are not possible. And the more you try to do that, the more you're setting yourself up for even bigger problems, all the way up to some very serious health concerns. So please, 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 please do not try to stop anger. It's not good for you. Instead, what we can do is we can use anger as a reminder, right? We can get used to what that feeling is in our bodies. And when we feel that, that can be the pure and wonderful reminder that it's time to practice some compassion, right? I'm sorry, but I started to say before that with practice, compassion goes from this, this attitude that we cultivate for everyone else and for ourselves, but after enough practice, and not many years or anything, it's just maybe a couple of months or so, if you're practicing every day and intentionally practicing the act of compassion, well, then what happens is it becomes an automatic emotional response, right? And so at that point, when you feel the anger, your body is going to automatically transform that anger into compassion. And that, my friends, that is when you're cooking with gas, because that is when you're going to, seriously, nothing gets in your way at that point, right? At that point, you are, as they say, bulletproof, right? There's nothing that could ever throw you off your game. There's nothing that could ever trigger that rage again in you. Right. And believe me, I am one. I was just working on as I told you yesterday, I'm going to be launching this new program, a group coaching program, all about how to transform anger into something more useful, right? And so I've been writing all this stuff about my own anger and my own stories and stuff. And I actually just wrote a story about my wedding day. Okay. On my wedding day, my wife and I, with the fancy photographer, both our families, everybody standing there on the Brooklyn Bridge. Okay, Brooklyn Bridge has some deep meaning for me. My great grandfather actually helped build the Brooklyn Bridge, died doing so. So he's actually, his bones are in the stones that hold up that Brooklyn Bridge. So it was a very meaningful thing for me, very meaningful day. We had this whole thing. It was a gorgeous day. We're out there on the bridge taking pictures, and some guy rode by on a bike, and just because he didn't he didn't avoid us enough or something like that for me, that I wound up getting into a fight with the guy, like arguing, not fist fight, because he was riding away. If he hadn't ridden away, if he had gotten off his bike, I bet right there in my tuxedo, I would have thrown a punch at the guy, and that's how crazy anger can get. Right. And so I know how it is, and so anyway, I don't remember exactly where I was going with telling you that story. But you can see that it's going to be on my website very shortly, the whole story, complete with some pictures from my wedding day. So you can look at me, like 20 years ago and laugh, because I look like some kind of little kid in the tuxedo, little kid in a big boy suit or something, but yeah. So anyway, so the whole point that I'm trying to make here, right, is how compassion, as you saw from my story on Monday that I told from what happened on Friday, is compassion is the key to transforming that anger, right? Because the thing is, as I think I mentioned this yesterday, is that anger is a very helpful emotion, right? It's actually one of the biggest motivators we have, right? And so that's not something we want to get rid of. It's not something we don't want to listen to, right? But like I told you yesterday, anger is kind of like stress in that way, right? That if we get into anger all the time, well, then it not only does it lose its effectiveness, right? Not only is it not doing the thing that it's there to help us do, right? To motivate us. It's no longer motivating us if we're doing it every single day, right? It's no longer that. But what it's doing is it's actually damaging us. Same thing with the stress response, right? As I told you about the cheetah and the gazelle, right? It's a very natural response. And without the stress response, the world would look, I don't think there'd be any life on Earth anymore except plants, right? because the stress response is integral to keeping us alive, right? But just like anger, if we get into chronic stress, it's no longer doing that thing. It's no longer effective in helping us in any way. All it's doing is damaging us slowly, but very surely and very consistently. And eventually the results are not pretty, right? In either case, whether it's chronic anger or chronic stress. However, most people, if you have chronic anger, I'm sure that in 5 minutes of talking to you, I can reveal that you're also dealing with chronic stress. And if you're dealing with chronic stress, there's a pretty good chance that you're also dealing with chronic anger as well. So compassion then is the way in which we can, again, to transform this motivating anger, right, into something that's useful. Right. Now, of course, this is very complex. And if you would like some more help on understanding how this works, I can certainly sit down with you and we can talk. We can go through some practices. We can do all that stuff. Right. But for today, I wanted to just spend a few minutes talking about different ways in which you can start practicing compassion, like right now. Right. Like right this minute. Right? And it's as simple. Here's the first one, right? As you're watching me on this video, I want you to just look at me for a moment, right? And look at my face and simply in your mind, right? Just quietly, you don't have to say it out loud. In your mind, say, Art, I wish you well. Now, it might not have felt like anything, right? There's no magic that happens from saying that simple statement, right? But if you say that statement every day to a lot of people, well, then again, what it does is it forms a new, neural pathway, as I talk about here, right? It's a new way that your brain, processes people, right? And so here's the first practice. Okay. So this is something I've given to so many of my clients, and this alone can be a game changer for people. Okay. you set a timer to go off on your phone. Now you can do it. It varies how much you want to, kind of. If you're working in an office and it's pretty low stress situation in your office, then set the timer to go off every hour. I mean, what do you got to lose, right? But if you're in a job that requires a lot of running around, sometimes it can become white noise if it goes off too many times. So judging by your own levels of busyness and stuff, what I was going to suggest is set a timer to go off. Whether it's once a day or 5 times a day or every hour, right? Whatever you feel like your life will fit. And again, if you want a consultation on that, I can do that for free for you. Just hit the link below. While that's available, by the way, I keep saying this, but my schedule is filling up. I mean, it's like 2 or 3 calls every week that people are booking on this on this method, and it's really exciting, but it's starting to get pretty full. So while it's available, click that link. Okay, so the practice is then to, every day, right, from even once a day to as many, like every hour of the day, right? You simply pause what you're doing, you look around, right? And anyone you can see. Now, you're not talking about a long time, right? Take 10 seconds, right? And everyone that you can see within those 10 seconds, just silently in your mind say, I wish you well. I wish you well. Okay? It's very simple. And again, it's not going to feel like anything, but I promise you, if you do this for a few weeks, you're going to start this habit. And that's where things start to change. Okay? So that's practice number 1. Practice number 2 is, really, an over an umbrella statement for all these other practices, right? Is going to be around the concept of informal practices, right? When we practice something formally, like that, like what I just told you to do, that's something I might call like a semi-formal practice, but it's pretty formal, right? Because you're a reminder is going off, right? The timer buzzes on your phone, you stop what you're doing, and you do this practice, right? That's a formal kind of thing, right? In the sense that, what formal practice means is that that's what you're doing. You're not doing anything else but that for right now. Right? So that's what we call a formal practice, right? But informal practices, right, are the things that we do, while we're doing our day, right? Just in stride, just you don't have to stop. You just kind of do, right? And so there's lots and lots and lots of ways to practice compassion in this way. And this is really a very, I think it's a very advantageous way to approach something like compassion, right? Because if you're doing it informally, right, you're going to tend to do it, several times a day, right? Like that's the idea, right? That as we do it several times a day, that's when we build this habit, right? And once it's a habit, it's something your body knows to do better than your brain knows how to do it. Right. And so that's what we're going for here. Okay. So some ideas on informal practices of compassion. One that I really love is that when I wake up in the morning, right, and I grab the shirt that I'm going to wear, or the jeans that I'm going to wear, right, I take a quick look at the tag, right, of where it was made. Right. And oftentimes that's somewhere on the other side of the world. Right. I've never been there. I have no idea what it's like there. But I have an image, right, of what Bangladesh must look like, about what, the Philippines must look like. Right. And I allow myself to recognize, as I'm reading this label of where this thing was made, I allow myself to recognize that there's a person, right, who lives in this place on the other side of the world or wherever it is, right? And this person's hands, stitched this shirt together or these jeans together, right? And without that person, and without the person who put it in a box, who put it onto a boat, who put it onto a plane, who put it onto a truck, who got it to the store where I went to buy it, without all of those people involved, I wouldn't be wearing this shirt right now, right? I like this shirt. I'm grateful for this shirt. I'm grateful for all those people who had something to do with me putting this shirt on today. And so I can take a moment. And again, this happens while I'm dressing. It's not something where I stop for 20 minutes and I get into a lotus position and I do some kind of, magical thing. No. Like while I'm getting dressed, I'm taking a moment and just wishing well to all of those people.